afford rent, getting gentrified. Marx in the house, about to tell you why. What up, beautiful people? Welcome to Marx in the House, a show where we look at gentrification and housing from a Marxist perspective. For the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about the switch from liberalism to neoliberalism. In the US, this became the era of deindustrialization and free circulation of finance capital. This made it easy fucking peasy for capitalists to switch from the first circuit, commodities and circulation, to the second circuit, the built environment. Neoliberalism also meant that private companies were essentially running cities. Deindustrialization? A city run by private companies and Danny Brown? Yes, y'all. In this episode, we're gonna be looking at Detroit. Now, you already know what we need to get started. Investment, disinvestment, reinvestment. Investment, the car industry. Disinvestment, capital flight from the inner cities to the suburbs. Unsurprisingly, black people were denied mortgages to move to the suburbs. They also received low wages and were the last to be hired in the auto industry, and the first to be fired. With investment in the suburbs and disinvestment in the inner city, of course we had a nice little rent gap opening up. This rent gap was made even wider because the city went bankrupt in 2013. Fucking Japanese cars. Now up to this point, I've kept saying that capital moves in seesaws, right? From investment to disinvestment and back. So this is a really handy way to think through capital movement and gentrification. But on a global scale, I've mainly been using capital circulation, which raises the point of cycles. The main point you should take away is this. When it comes to capital movement, there's a boom in one place and a crash in another. There was a boom in the South and West in the US in the 80s and a crash in the northern industrializing cities. So far so familiar, right? But just like how in Santiago there was a difference in the typical gentrification pattern with working class people supplying the investment portion, so was there a difference from the regular pattern in Detroit. Here it was the reinvestment part, aka the gentrification part, which wasn't a long drawn out process as it was in different cities. It skipped bougie coffee spots, art galleries, and block by block invasion. It just went straight to dumping capital. That's that new gentrification, baby. Think about it. The previous gentrifying invasions we looked at in the US all happened between the 60s and 80s. They had to be careful because it was a new type of investment strategy. Now we're in the 2010s. The formula is already proven to work. You see, most investors are meek-minded people. If they're gonna put their money up, they need to know it works. And gentrification isn't as risky a strategy anymore. We've got almost every city in the world to show investors their money is worth fucking up poor people's lives, damn it. So aside from the reinvestment portion, what's special about Detroit? It sounds like just the same old pattern as the other cities we've looked at. But remember, Detroit went bankrupt in 2013. We're knee fucking deep in neoliberalism at this point. And under neoliberalism, almost everything is left to private companies, even the running of cities. So what would be the solution for capital-starved Detroit? Private investment. Flood that shit with capital. The city at first was run by an emergency manager, Kevin Orr. He slashed city services to create a better business environment. Sound familiar? So what was Detroit's anchoring point for gentrification? Capitol Park. In 2009, the city renovated it. This of course bumped up the land value of the city-owned buildings surrounding the park. These were then sold to private developers. And boom, by gentrification magic, rundown apartments turn into high-end condos. Now back in the 70s, getting people on the gentrifying train could be a fucking struggle. Remember, in the Lower East Side, we needed a fucking mix of lawyers, developers, and other scumbags to scrap their pocket pennies together just to get a piece of that urban pie. Compare that shit to Detroit. Dan Gilbert, the head of Quicken Loans, one of the largest mortgage companies in the US, owns 100 properties in Detroit. That's like 100 fucking more than me. Dave Bing, Detroit's mayor in 2010, had seen how important it was for land values to be steady and protected. And sometimes rivers, bridges, or highways just don't seem enough to have neat dividing lines. So he actually proposed shrinking the municipal boundaries of Detroit. Listen, I know I often say that poor people aren't actually considered to be part of the city and just a nuisance, but jeez, man, do you have to be this fucking obvious? Have some self-respect. So the new Detroit is now nearly a closed loop, and this closed loop is called the 7.2. It's a smart gentrifying tactic, really. Higher development density means you get more money out of the same plot of land. That's why developers are always trying to densify. And if you give them the opportunity to do so, well buddy, you're in for a gentrifying treat. But a strange thing happens when cities go bankrupt. Somehow, someway, they still always find some money to subsidize rich real estate developers. Detroit's mayor gave Dan Gilbert, the Quicken Loans guy, a $50 million tax break to move his headquarters to the city. The same ass-face Dan Gilbert then traveled to the White House and convinced Obama to spend $300 million on Detroit and $150 million on blight removal, which is just a code word for slum clearance, which is just a code word for displacement of people. In 2013, the actual year the city went fucking bankrupt, Detroit City Council paid 60% of a new hockey arena. The money went straight into the pockets of Red Wings owner Mike Ilitch, who owns Little Caesars. The $5 of shame gets me every fucking time. This is what slashing government funding really means. $260 million that was supposed to have gone to Michigan public schools instead went to the redevelopment of housing, office space, and upscale retail, all within the 7.2. The city also gave Marathon Petroleum $175 million in tax breaks to expand its oil refinery in the city. Oh, but don't worry, at least it provided jobs, right? A whopping 15 million of them. No cap. The mayor's office also sold 140 acres of public land in the center of the city to John Hans, a Detroit multi-millionaire, for a mere $520,000. In bourgeois terms, that's a steal. Hans promised to develop it into a tree farm, but we all know what he really planned on doing. Expensive housing, baby. A tree farm? What do we need those for? Oxygen? But that land value in a 7.2 still needed to go up. Come on, give me that rent money. Aside from renovating parks and buildings and shit, you know what bumps up land value like nothing else? Public transit. I present to you the M1. Now the M1 originally was supposed to connect Detroit's northern suburbs to downtown, to speed up people's commutes. Seems like actual use value to me. That's not what we're here for. Come on, no, it's not what we're doing here. In the end, the M1 got cut down to a fifth of its original length. It only connects business downtown with the residential district of Midtown, and speculators were already buying up real estate along its route before it even got built. They're freely admitting the M1 is nothing but a real estate development tool. Yikes. And this is going to become important when we look at gentrification in the global south. And remember Dan Gilbert getting all bubbly with Obama? Yeah, the federal government gave him $35 million for the M1 too. But it's not only private companies that are in charge of fucking Detroit. Nonprofits like the Kreska Foundation have literally become the Department of Planning for sections of the city. Cause the city government just doesn't have the money or power to do that shit anymore. Scary. What was it that Lenin said again about the state being just a tool for ruling class to use for their own class benefit or something? Anyway, Midtown Detroit Inc. on the other hand rezoned the whole city. They paid for the planning, the specialists, and hold all the meetings. Then they work with the city to meet all the requirements. How nice of them. And that's about it. What? The actual working class people living in the city? Oh, they're just the ones who are paying for roads and water lines through property taxes. These taxes, by the way, can be thousands of dollars for cribs that aren't worth more than $10,000. Naturally, a lot of people can't keep up as their taxes build up year after year. And when it comes to the point that they don't even qualify for a payment plan anymore, they lose their crib. And the gentrification continues. But of course, this isn't just a natural process. The city actually spurred this shit on. It was only after letting unpaid taxes build up for several years that the city then started to demand money back. In 2015, in Wayne County alone, 30,000 homes were sold and seized at an auction. At least 10,000 of these homes were occupied. And if that wasn't enough, Detroit charges some of the highest household water rates in the country. Nearly a quarter of the population's behind on their water bill. Their fucking water bill. And of course, under capitalism, if you can't pay your water bill, no water for you. In 2014 alone, the city cut off the water supply of thousands of households, and people are still dying as a result of this. Your takeaway for today? Well, we've reached a point where cities are being run like private companies, and private companies are running cities, and the result's a fucking nightmare. It's not just Detroit. In New York City, it's the billionaire Bloomberg, who's helping turn Manhattan into one vast gated community for the rich. In Seattle, it's billionaire Paul Allen. In New Haven, it's whole-ass Yale University taking on urban reinvestment because the city doesn't have shit. That's why we're seeing all these horrible slogans, man. Cities have whole-ass branding teams. Blah. In Detroit's case, Opportunity Detroit. Opportunity for who? You guessed it. Capital accumulation. Marx and the House is a Space Babies production. Please support us here on Patreon. Don't forget to share this video, subscribe, and leave a comment. Peace, Space Baby out.